Afternoon. I'm Edward Probert. I'm the Canon Chancellor at Salisbury Cathedral, and this is our reflection for Tuesday, the 13th of April. Well, it's the 13th of April, but actually it's the start of a new month, and it's the start of a religious season. It's the start of Ramadan. It's rather interesting that this annual period of fasting for many in our society, and many more besides outside our own society, comes quite soon after the period of fasting which we observe in the Christian Church during Lent. This period of fasting that Muslims are now embarking upon will go on until mid-May. It's quite a long haul yet to go for them. The coincidence or near coincidence of this with our own season puts me in mind of a time when I had a curate. This is going back quite a long time now. I had a curate who was of partly Greek background, and her sibling and her mother, who shared her house, were both in fact Greek Orthodox still in their observance, as she had been in her childhood before she became a member of the Church in Wales and the Church of England. And she was with me all through one Lent as we planned and delivered all the services together. She went home on Easter Day, and as she left the church, she said, "When I get back, my mum and sister are going to be just coming back from their Palm Sunday service, and this coming week will all be Holy Week all over again." It's funny how these religious traditions, albeit identical in our case really with the Greek Orthodox, can overlap and run counter to one another, and in some ways reflect and challenge one another. And certainly there are many points of comparison with Islam for Christians. As I said, this is a period of fasting for Muslims. It's done somewhat more organised, is done in a rather more organised way than it customarily is in the rather laissez-faire practice of the Church of England of our day. Muslims, by and large, unless they have a dispensation, which of course those who are sick or pregnant or anything of the kind that requires special care, and Muslims, that is, who are of maturity over adolescence and beyond until great age, tend to keep Ramadan by fasting from dawn till twilight. And those who can bear this fast do so by abstaining from food, all liquid refreshment if possible, and other things besides. Now, it's worth bearing in mind the season we are enduring or enjoying at the moment in England. Leave aside the variable daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures and the frosts we're getting in the morning and all that. We are getting a progressively greater amount of daylight. Just a few days ago, when we observed Easter Day very early in the morning, we set the start of our service for 5:30 in the morning to come before dawn. Well, a Muslim in this part of this country today would be starting their fast at 4:34 a.m. and they wouldn't be able to break that fast until 7:57 p.m. That's more than 15 hours later. And come the 12th of May, dawn will be at 7:27 and night will fall at 8:45. So by then, it will be a very, very long period of fast, peculiar to those of us who live up in these northern parts, or if one lived in the southern parts of the world. Pity any poor Muslim who lives up in the Arctic Circle. In fact, pity any poor Muslim who lives in Glasgow, for example, where night will extend for 22 minutes longer, a shorter period rather. There will be another hour's daylight. I suppose one consolation for Muslims in this part of England, in Britain generally, is that it is it's an earlier season. Ramadan, the Muslim year, is slightly shorter than the 365 days we live with, and Ramadan comes slightly earlier in the year every year. And last year, of course, there was a very harsh lockdown. So it was very difficult for them to gather for worship, or even, I suppose, to buy the food they needed at the times when they could use it. For the most part, Muslims live in places where they are with a goodly number of their own fellows in the faith, and so they can gather together to share common meals and support one another through what must be a really rigorous season very often. But it's also a season they, in my experience, always describe with great affection and great joy. It's a challenge, but it's one they love rising to. And it comes with periods of common celebration and enjoyment as they break the fast after these long hauls of fasting. And it's an expression of dependence on God, which is partly expressed through a challenge to be charitable, to be generous, to support the weak and the needy. Well, I hope that you will spare a thought and a prayer for our Muslim neighbours, our Muslim brothers and sisters in faith in this coming month. This for them is a really special time, and it's pretty grueling. And it must be particularly so to do so in a society where relatively few people know, or indeed probably care very much, about the ways in which they are currently seeking privately and in their hearts and in the ways they use their body to express their dependence upon and their love for God. So please support them in this challenging time, and we look forward to being able to share more of our contrasts and similarities in the faith with them when times are more normal. I want to finish this reflection by quoting, as I have not infrequently done, a poem, or in this case a part of a poem by George Herbert, the local poet. He wrote one of his church poems on Lent. I don't think it's his best effort, to be honest with you, and I wonder whether he felt a certain ambivalence about his subject matter. But this is the last verse of what is for him not a short poem. Yet, Lord, instruct us to improve our fast by starving sin and taking such repast as may our faults control, that every man may revel at his door, not in his parlour, banqueting the poor, and among those his soul. One slightly embarrassing irony in the midst of thinking about what I was going to say in this reflection was that my phone rang in the bedroom just along the corridor there. My wife went to answer it. It was a wine merchant ringing me, see if I wanted to place any orders. It's best that I sign off now before I incriminate myself. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.